Freda. Freda, 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 Freda. Come on, let's embarrass her. Freda, Freda, Freda.
Go Freda!
Gosh. I love this woman. She is just great. When I first met her, I thought, oh, I read about her, I knew all about her, and now we're friends. And we had some wild times in New York City a few years ago. You remember that? They always say if you remember it, you weren't doing it right. But anyway, no, but Freda didn't trust me, so she gave me all these notes here. She thought, oh, we'd talk 5 minutes and then run out of stuff to talk about. But that's impossible.
I just thought, people might want to know different things that's in the film. It's like to be fed up with the film by now.
And this is your dinner menu here. But well, let's start with the Midas Man Film, because that's an interesting thing, and we don't know much about it over here.
Well, I don't know if many people know or not, but they've just finished a film about Brian Epstein. And over the years, there's quite a few people have tried to do either a documentary about him or a film and haven't succeeded. But this time they have. And lucky enough, I was invited to like a private viewing of it, and it is very good. There's a guy called Jacob Fortune Lloyd. He plays Brian Epstein. He was in The Gambit on Netflix, if you saw that or not. He's been in quite a few things. Oh, and I'll tell you who else is in it. Eddie Izzard. I think he plays Alan Williams. There's a girl playing me because I didn't get the part.
They have makeup, they could do it.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm supposed to be 17. I don't think there's a makeup artist can make me 17 again. Do you?
17, you know what I mean?
But I am in a little shot. I'm all dickied up. All poshed up.
Well, maybe some people don't know why you would be in a Brian Epstein movie, but you are a big part of that story. So give us that.
Well, people think I first ran the fan club, and I didn't. I helped a girl who ran the fan club, and Brian Epstein got to know me, and then he needed another secretary. He had one, and he knew I could do I had secretarial skills, so he offered me a job. And as I said the other day, I didn't know, and I went to see him, and then I thought, I'll give it a shot. And I thought, well, my father thought I would last a year. And then 10 years later, I left.
Well, your father wasn't that excited about this job, right?
No. And he judged a book by the cover, and he saw them in the leathers and didn't really want me mixing with people that wore leather trousers. But I think he came around in the end.
And proven that the boys were nice.
Yeah. Although he did chase George Harrison home one night. He chased George Harrison home one night. George gave me a lift home, and we were just sitting on a bit of a wall, and it was after midnight, and you don't think your voice carries. And we were just talking, but then next minute, it was about, say, 1 o'clock in the morning, and the door opened. My father's in his pajamas. He grabs hold of me by the scruff of the neck. He said, you can get in and you can go home. So I didn't want to face George for 2 weeks.
That's embarrassing. That's very embarrassing. Well, what about Brian, because he's such an interesting part of the Beatles story. In fact, we probably wouldn't be here talking about the Beatles if, it was a group thing, and he did his contribution. And you got to know his mother, and I always found her to be an interesting character,
Queenie.
Yeah.
Yes, she was lovely. And he adored his mother, really adored his mother. And this film is they've took a lot about him from a book that was written by Ray Coleman. I don't know if many
Some of
people
you
have heard
remember
of
Ray Coleman. People have been here for 100 years.
Yeah.
Ray was a frequent guest.
Yeah.
And I think still wrote the best book about John Lennon.
Yeah, yeah. Well, when they sent me the script in the beginning, the script writer, I just like flicked through it, and I didn't want to be too unkind. Sometimes I am. And I just said to her, "You're reading the wrong books." And then suggested that she read Ray's book.
They took your...
But, you know, they did read it, and there's bits of
Yeah,
other
and then they
things in
realized
it.
that was the right book.
That was right.
Yeah, that was the right book. Now, what is it with, like, Brian and all four of the Beatles? They really were mother's boys. You know, they loved their mothers. I mean, and George and Ringo's mothers, they were answering fan mail and stuff.
Yeah, well, Mrs. Harrison, Louise Harrison, was great because they got a lot of mail at home. And she answered all George's mail. Mr. McCartney, who I used to call Uncle Jim, you know, he'd done a bit of Paul's, but then when Angela McCartney came along, you know, her and Ruth, they answered it. And Mimi wasn't too bad. But I used to go to all the houses, you know, because I would bring them stationery, and if you were a cousin of a Beatle or a next door neighbour, so people kept asking them for photographs of the Beatles. So I would order 10,000 at a time, a handout photograph. So I would go to the houses and give them the photographs. So I used to go to Mimi's, on average about once a month, help her. Paul's, you know, the posh house, I went occasionally for tea. And I used to go to Harrison's on a Saturday, not every Saturday, but when I had presents for George, you know, I'd go on a Saturday up to Maggots Lane, and then they'd take me out, because they were good, they liked socialising and dancing. And Mr. Harrison thought I should learn to dance properly, because I was a jiver, and he didn't think that was dancing properly. A jiver. You jive.
Okay. Welcome to America, where we don't really speak English.
So he reckoned I should be taught ballroom dancing, and he tried to teach me the quick step. So, and then when Ringo joined the group, he asked me would I do his mail at home, and I said no, I've got too much to do. You know, I had Brian Epstein's work to do, and then fan club stuff. And I said, get your mother to do it. And he said, oh, she doesn't know what to do, Free. And I said, well, you know, you just answer the letters. So, because it's in the film, you put the sad eyes on, I said, oh, go on then, bring it in. And this sounds terrible. He brought in about 9 letters in a little polythene bag, where the other lot used to get it like that. And without thinking, I mean, I've got no elastic on my tongue, you know, but without thinking, I just looked at him and went, is this all you get? Ouch. And then he said, I've put the answers on the top of the letters, which you have done. And I said to him, well, if you've put the answers on the top, why didn't you write? You know. And then he went, oh, can you help me, Mum? And I went, oh, okay. So I went up on the Wednesday after work, knocked on the door, and Elsa opened the door, and I said, oh, I'm Freda from the office. So she said, oh, come in, come in, come in. So she said, have you had your tea? And I said, no. And she said, do you want egg and chips? So I went to that house, Admiral Grove, every Wednesday till they left. And I went to the new house, the bungalow, the posh bungalow, every Wednesday until she died. And I still see his family. He's got one aunt left, Auntie Evie, and she's 107. And I go every month to see her.
Well, there's a story too about a very special brooch. If you could tell us.
Well, when Richie married Barbara, he bought each mother, or had it made, a gold star with all Mary's B and the date. And when Els died, when his mother died, he said to his stepfather, give Freda that brooch. And I've got the brooch. One of my treasured memories.
I'm sure you have that brooch. We won't be seeing that on the internet, like for 50 pounds. So, you know. Oh, that's very sweet.
Yeah.
And when's the last time you've seen Ringo or heard from him?
Well, I saw him at the auction, you know, the big auction he had for charity, where he raised 10 million, yeah, in LA. I went to that, because he told the auctioneers to get me out there. So I went for a week, and about 3 weeks ago, he was with one of the auctioneers, and Martin, his name is Martin Nolan, and Martin was with Richie. And Richie borrowed Martin's phone, and he sent me a WhatsApp. And then Paul was in Liverpool last week at Liverpool, and a friend of mine saw him. I don't know if people have heard of The Farm, the group The Farm, but Carl was there and was talking to him and everything. And my name must have cropped up, and Paul said, "Oh, tell Freda I send her my love."
He's a good guy. I don't know if you know this, I have a story for you. But my mother, who was a musician, and she did what ended up being her last recital. And it was at the retirement home she was at. And I said, "Well, what are you going to play?" And she said, "Well, I'm going to do the Bees, Betty." She was Betty. And she was a real Betty. I mean, she's a real character. And she'd been to Fest a couple times. But as Betty plays Basie, Bartok, Brahms, Beethoven, and the Beatles. And I said, "Well, that's great. What Beatles songs are you going to do, Mom?" And she said, "Oh, Yesterday, because all the old people like that song." And then she said, "And then I'm going to do When I'm 64, but I'm going to change it to When I'm 84, because everybody in the home is past 64. And I thought that was hysterical. So one time I'm with Paul, and we do this interview before one of his shows, and it was supposed to be 15 minutes, and we'd gone on a half hour, and I said, "Well, I better let you go." And he said, "Trying to get rid of me then?" I said, No, I just I'm trying to be nice." And he said, "Well, tell me something about you." I thought, "Oh, criminy, I had a plan on it.
What do I say?
Well, I told him about my mother's recital, and he loved it. And he wasn't 64 yet, but he said, "Maybe I'll do this on tour." And he started, and I had kept the tape on, because I learned with Paul, you keep the tape recorder on, you don't turn it off, because the good stuff comes at the end. And he started singing When I'm 84.
Aww.
And I got to play it on the radio the next day. And then people started writing in and saying, "Hey, Paul was on Ellen DeGeneres telling about this old lady who was doing When I'm 84. And he kept doing this, all these shows. And so next time I saw him, I said, "By the way, my mother said that you don't have to hire a lawyer. She's, you know, you can do it if you want." And he went, "Oh, thanks, Terry's mom," you know. So I'm speaking at college a couple of years ago, telling that story, and the professor raised his hand. I said, "Yes, you have a question?" And Paul's book, Lyrics. You have that book, the 2 book set? Go home and look up When I'm 64, because he tells that story again 20 years later about this lady. Of course, he doesn't say a disc jockey told me. He said, "Oh, a little lady came up to me on holiday and said," you know, embellished a little bit, but about when I'm 84. My mother went to her grave knowing she was an influence on Paul McCartney.
Can I just interrupt you just a minute?
You can do anything.
Can I bring my grandson up? Because I think he just wants to say hello.
Oh, yes, come on in. What? Come here. This, I'm a huge Dusty Springfield fan.
She mentioned her yesterday, but the first time I met Terry, she said to me, "I couldn't afford to join your fan club."
It was $2.
But I joined Dusty's, and I always remembered it. And I have this at home, and it's 58 years old.
Whoa!
It's on the back.
Oh my God! Now, is this a gift, or you just showed it to me?
No, it's for you.
Oh, thank you! Oh, thank you! Oh my gosh, thank you! I am such a Dusty fan. Thank you! Oh! Oh my God! Thanks for Well, anyway,
That's to let me off with any more questions.
no, you're gonna. Sorry, you've got more questions coming. But you know, we're talking about the mothers. What about the other two, because it seems, and lots have been written about this, this is one of the initial attractions between Paul and John, as they both lost their mother, and they had an empathy for each other about how devastating
Well, I
it was.
lost my mother as well when I was a child.
Oh, when you were a child?
Yeah. But I never told them.
No. Well,
But
that might have
you know,
put
if
you in
you
the group.
think, you know,
Yeah. But you lose a parent at that age, and that's, and
And I think I got the job because I was left-handed.
left-handed, like you could play
two
bass.
people.
Yeah, you could play bass for it. Okay. So, what did you spent a lot of time with them? Did they ever talk to you about their mothers or anything, or is that something they didn't feel comfortable talking about to other people?
No, they didn't mention the mums. I mean, Paul did. He just told me that there was an Irish connection because, I'm from Dublin. And I knew, I can't remember if it was in the cabin, when I got to know them, or when it was in the office. I don't really know. But did I ever tell you about the crickets and Paul? Right, well, I was in Nashville and I went to a museum and I was looking at certain things in the museum, and out the corner of my eye I cocked a letter typed and with NEMS Enterprises heading on it. And I went over to it and it was signed by the 4 Beatles. So I said to the curator, "Oh, see that letter?" I said, "I typed that." And he went, "Oh," and I said, "Yeah, if you look at the reference, it's PMC/FK, that's me." So it was the 23rd of January, anyway, 1963. So he said, "Oh yeah, one of the crickets has got the original." And I said, "No, he hasn't." And he said, "Oh, he has. He's got the original." And I said, "He's got the original typed version." I said, "But you know what? He should be thankful to me." So he said, "Why?" I said, "Because Paul came into the office the next day after seeing the crickets, and he said to me, "Oh, can you do a letter to the crickets?" And he was going on about them. I can't remember, because it's long ago. And he said, "Can you do the letter?" And I went, "No, I'm too busy." And, I was doing Brian Epstein. I was Brian Epstein's secretary, not Paul McCartney's secretary.
Uppity guy.
So he went on, and in the end I said, "Oh, just write it down what you want, and I'll type it then." So I think I maybe typed it 2 days later. Anyway, Paul came in, but the other 3 came in with him. So I said to him, "I've typed that letter." And he said, "Oh, good." So he got the other 3. So they all signed that letter. But if I'd have typed the letter when Paul wanted me to, he would have only got Paul's signature. But I kept, the creator, I did say, Paul hand wrote that letter, and I've got that letter.
But I have a Dusty Springfield single, so I feel. Now let's talk about this Magical Mystery Tour filming. You had to wear the same rubbish dress every day of the filming, because that's the way it is with movies. You can't just wear something different because it's all in one scene.
Yeah, but I've never been in a movie before. I don't know any of that, do I?
Secretary and Liverpool.
Yeah. But I was into clothes. All my money went on my back, as my father said. And I bought, Mary Quant stuff and everything. And I was going away for a fortnight. So I had a dress for the afternoon and a dress for the night. So the first day on the coach, I wore my scruffiest dress, an old cardi and an old pair of beads, okay, for travelling in. So the next morning when we got to the hotel, I had a Mary Quant dress on. And one of the cameramen, looking if it wasn't one of the Beatles, said to me, "You didn't have that on yesterday." I said, "Oh no, I just had that on for travelling." And he said, "This is a day trip. What you had on yesterday, you've got to wear for 2 weeks." So I had to wear my scruffy old dress. Well, I didn't stay 2 weeks, I only stayed a week. Hello, Sky. Hello, Sky.
Well, that's glamorous, is it, making movies? Or did you get totally bored?
I got not totally, but nearly bored at the end of the week. Yeah.
How about the fish and chip shop? Some of us are nerdy enough, we've seen all the outtakes, and there is a lot of fun in that chip shop.
Well, yeah, we just called there on the spur of the moment, just because we were hungry, and they were dressed weird, So as George and John went in, and the rest of the coach, and then people started looking through the window. So the lads went up to get their fish chips first, and I just stood at the back. And then George turned around and looked at me and he said, "Have you got your fish and chips?" And I said, "No, it's all right, I'll wait till later." And he went, "No, no." So he gave me his, and then he queued up again. So he was very thoughtful, George.
How nice were they? I tell you, if you see, and I'm sure they had their days where...
Oh, they had their days when they weren't. They are human.
Yeah, well, everybody does in a sense, but not everybody's the Beatles, the four most popular people in the half a century there. And now we're going into a full century. And you and I will be here 25 years from now talking about the good old days of the Beatles, but the impact they had. But considering how obnoxious they could have been, they were really good people.
Yeah.
I mean, you saw that. One of the things I was drawn to when I saw them on Ed Sullivan was the sense of camaraderie. And you never saw that before. And all the other groups looked really rehearsed, like, take their guitars and do this. And they were just having the time of their life.
Yeah,
and that showed.
It just shows you how close-knitted they were, and well, I think first of all they were from Liverpool, and people in Liverpool have got their feet on the ground, and also because there was four of them, I always refer it to Elvis, where Elvis was on his own, he didn't have any mates, he just had minders, they had each other, and they have said it before, it isn't just me saying it, if one got a big high-headed, he definitely got shot down by the other three, but they always stuck together.
I said that on the anthology.
Yeah.
That's my favorite part of the anthology, because I think that's
the
part
truth,
of the
yeah. And they could also, I don't know, it's like, I don't believe in it really, but, read people's minds, they knew what the other one would say was thinking at a certain time, and then they'd give an answer before he even said the question.
Did you get to go to any of the premieres? Because they did several films.
Yeah.
Mr. Tour wasn't the only one. Did you ever get to go to those?
Oh yeah, I went to the premieres. One of the premieres I remember was Yellow Submarine, and all the Beatles were on the first row on the balcony, and I was with them, and my husband, we were on the first row. And How I Won the War, I took my best friend from Apple to that lorry, and there was a party afterwards, but there was always a party afterwards, but that particular film, they were saying there was no party afterwards. But then Peter Brown and Neil Aspin, they were both head of Apple, and they said there is a private party for just a few people. Have you heard of Cilla Black? Yeah, well it was in Cilla Black's flat. So just, the lads and their parents and Laurie and I and Tony Barrow, the press officer, we went to the party. And so everybody could be completely themselves because it was just us. But Mama Cass found out and tried to gate crash, but she didn't succeed.
They turned her away?
Yeah. Well, Tony Barrow did, the press officer did, yeah. I don't know if he told that tale here or not, because I think he done the festival years ago, before Tony Barrow, the press officer. Yeah. And the civic reception. I went to the civic reception in Liverpool.
The one where, the whole city showed up?
I wasn't invited, because I'm just admin. And I can't remember, it was in the office, but, they were saying to me, are you going to the town hall? And I said, no. And he said, why aren't you going to the town hall? I said, because I haven't been invited. I think it was Richie, and he said, what do you mean you haven't been invited? I said, what I said, it's just for you lot and your parents and the councillors and the dignitaries of Liverpool. Anyway, next minute I got an invite. he put me down as family in his list, and that's in the record of the town hall. So I got invited.
I think you were family, so, and always will be family, you know. And I love how sentimental they are about Liverpool and about people like you and their lives back when they were just young guys starting out. They never forgot. Some people do, but some celebrities do, and these guys.
I loved Peter Jackson's Get Back. I just loved it. You know, I went. You know, when they said they were doing it, and my daughter said, I haven't got Disney. And my daughter's got Disney, and she said, oh, you can come over to me, Mum, she lives in Liverpool, and watch it in ours. And I said, I'm not going to yours. You and Niall will be like that all the time. So I went round to friends, and Phil and I went, and I said to her, you make the tea and I'll bring the cake. And it was on, I think, from 7 till 9. The four of us never spoke one word. I was just absorbed in it. And at the end of the first night, I just said to Mark, I'm coming tomorrow, I'm coming the next day. I couldn't wait. I loved where John was going, and Alan Williams is in it, and John is skitting and talking about Liverpool and Maggie May, and you know, and I just thought, when I first started doing the festivals, I didn't think people really knew what the Beatles were all about. And I used to say, if you want to get an inkling of what a Beatle is like, watch Hard Day's Night. You get a little bit of the gist of what they're like. But when Get Back came out, I thought, now you know what they were really like, how close they were, and how quickly they could write songs. And I love what John says to George, you know, George is saying, oh, I can't find a word for this song. And John turns around and said, oh, just use cauliflower or whatever. You know, I loved all that.
And that was when, you know, they were really having a hard time with each other, when things were falling apart, yet you could still sense that love.
Yeah. And when you see them on Apple Roof, I mean, they hadn't played for 3 years, and they just gelled, and I thought, they've got it, you know.
And I remember thinking, 8 hours, that's a lot. But at the end of it, you want another 8.
Yeah, well, that's me.
And now I wish we could get like films like that, like Hard Day's Night, but get all the other film that ended up on the floor. Wouldn't we love to see that?
Yeah, but Hard Day's Night, it was 60 years old this year, and Beatles Story in Liverpool done 3 really, you know, good things about it. They had a reception in Beatles Story beforehand. We all went to see Hard Day's Night on the big screen, which was amazing, you know, and there is bits you forget after 60 years, but it was fabulous. And then we had a party afterwards in Hard Day's Night. So.
That is a great movie, and I grew up in a small town in Ohio. We had one movie theater that showed one movie at a time. And my friend Ginger, who was Paul and I was John in our group, we went the first day and we went to all 4 screenings. And the woman selling tickets let us slip out between the 3rd and 4th to grab a hot dog across the street and come back because we were hungry. And Ginger and I were the screamers, you know, like, because we wanted to shut up so we could hear what they were saying. And we just, and I'll never forget that. She passed years ago, but that was one of our great things as being friends, is sit through 4 showings of a Hard Day's Night and loving every minute of it. Just wonderful.
You were talking about screamers there. You know, certain things on television, it shows Liverpool and it shows kids screaming. But in 1963, the Beatles were walking around Liverpool. Number one, people weren't screaming, they would just go up to them and say, you know, where are you playing tomorrow, or you know, where are you going next? And with me being a Calvinite and a Beatle fan, the girls I palled around with, I knew which girl fancied which Beatle. And I remember one day running up, because I was the junior secretary, you know, it was like Freda go to the bank, Freda go to the post office, Freda to go and get the sandwiches, it was all that. And I was going up to the bank, and it was about 11 o'clock. and two girls were walking towards me, both Paul fans. And I knew their names, you know, and I just looked at them and I went, if you nip into a certain shop, which was like John Lewis, I said, Paul will be in there at 11:15 because he always buys his ciggies from Joe Tony Lee's at 11:15 when he's in town. So I used to do things like that.
And everybody in the room is thinking, did Freda have a favorite Beatle?
Oh, I did every week.
We gotta wrap this up. You and I could do this till Liverpool comes on tonight. But it's wonderful to have you back here. You have a lot of friends in Chicago.
I love
you.
Chicago.
Chicago.
I've got 5 cousins in Chicago.
And I've heard some people say that like New York is like London, Chicago is more like Liverpool.
Yeah.
You know, a little more working class, but still tied into culture.
Well, I love Chicago because, you know, the pavements are wider than New York. People are not in a rush and they talk to you.
People are very friendly.
Yeah.
Very friendly, and we love you, and you come back again, okay? I mean, like every year.
Give you a present from me.
What?
Can I give you a present from me?
This is for you?
No, it's for you.
Oh, I thought it was, what is this?
The last song they wrote with John on. Do you remember it?
Yes.
Now and Then.
Yes.
And on the B-side, Love Me Do.
Yes.
This is the T-shirt from the song.
Oh my God. Hold it. Does this song make you weep like it makes me weep?
When I first heard it, I was invited to the Cavern, to Noel, to Rogue's Museum, to Beatles Story, you know, to come and hear when it was being released at 2:15. And I said, no, I want to hear it on my own. And I was in the kitchen, and you know, the flap over the cooker hood was flapping, and I thought, oh, I'll have to go upstairs to the bedroom and hear it. And when our local radio played it, and the first play, I just listened to the words. I just was soaking up the words. And then the second play, the music, brought a tear to my eye. Anyway, go.
Thank you. We love you. Thank you, Freda. Freda! You forgot one thing. Thank you. Oh, your notes. Yes. Give your notes to the next person that interviews you. Oh, thank you, Dusty. God bless her. Now you know why I love her so much. She's great.